All right, today we are talking about ceramic coatings and the amazing world of a ceramic coating. There isn't much appreciation. Well, I shouldn't say that. There probably is a lot of appreciation for what a ceramic coating does, but today we're going to put that into perspective. But first, I promised that I would highlight comments from a video I posted a little while back, so let's take a look at that.
This is a water droplet that's just traversing down the side of my car. There's no rinseless here, it's just straight H2O. But my car was absolutely filthy at the time with a lot of road debris and salt because this was during the winter. And I thought it looked really cool on camera. If you look closely, you can see that there are dirt particles that are swirling around, and as the water droplet goes in further and further down the side of the car, it's picking up more and more dirt. So when we go back to the beginning, the water droplet, as you can see, is not holding nearly as much dirt as it does at the end. And that got me intrigued because I noticed that as it was going down, the dirt inside the water droplet was swirling in a certain direction, kind of in a back to front, over the top kind of direction. Very noticeable right there. You can see it. And I was like, huh, do water droplets slide or do they roll? Or is it both? And after doing a little bit of research, it turns out that on a very hydrophobic surface, water droplets are actually rolling. So I thought it was really cool, and I just wanted to share it. And when I asked for your comments, I got some of the coolest comments. AMI Detail, Jason, you wrote something really cool here. Not only was it really well written, I felt like I was reading a good book, but you pointed something out that was very important. It's that the contaminants are being plucked from the surface. So, when you look closely at this video, you can actually see some of the contaminants getting caught up in that surface tension and getting pulled from the surface. So that was really cool to see. And then Franco. Oh God, Franco, what are we gonna do with you, buddy? That's Franco doing what Franco does in his way of elegance. So thank you, Franco, for for contributing and making me laugh. And then Conway, I think you got it really close as well. Between you and Jason, it's really hard to pick, but you guys were super close, and you wrote great comments and made awesome observations on this. So I look forward to doing this again. I think this was really fun. So if I find another thing happening that looks cool, I'll post it up and we can do this again.
So what creates hydrophobicity, and what does that even mean, right? So we're going to hit the drawing board real quick, and we're going to take a look at what it means to be hydrophobic and hydrophilic. So what we have here is just a pane of glass. This is just a regular piece of glass from a dining set, and on the right we have a piece of silicon. One of those silicon, I don't know that it's true silicon, but it is one of those silicon mats that you use for cooking. You can put hot things on it. Now, they're both made from silicon, right? They both have a lot of silicon in them. That is the main ingredient. However, because of the way they're manufactured and the other chemicals that are added, they're completely different. Their molecular structure or their crystal structure, whatever you want to call it, it's completely different. So here we have glass that is hard and inflexible. We have a mat that is flexible, right? Soft, and it's kind of grippy too. So I want to show you something. On glass, you can see that I can push this cup relatively easily from the top, right? It moves around, no problem. On here, we have friction, a lot of friction. This isn't really, it's not slick, right? We can't push stuff across it easily. However, we have water with some food coloring in it so that you can see it. One of these has high surface energy and the other one has low surface energy. So that means one of these is going to bead and one of these is going to be hydrophilic, and the water droplets will spread out. So take a moment, take a guess. Will it be the grippy, soft surface, or will it be the perfectly smooth, hard surface? Have you thought about it? All right, let's take a look. Look at that. As I spray water on here, the soft, grippy surface is beading, and the hard, slicker surface is not. So that means, think about that for a second. Think about that for a second, right? Look, a slick surface is not an indicator of hydrophobicity. How wild is that? How wild is that? A slick surface, in this case, is hydrophilic. The water spreads around, right? It's not a droplet. Where on this side, the water does not want to, look at that. It does not want to stick to this surface. It keeps wanting to bead up. Now, this isn't perfect beading, but you can see a huge difference here, where here the water is very smeary and it doesn't turn into beads. Here, you know, you can see the water trail and it kind of is coming in on itself quickly, right? In fact, if I go like this, it wants to move. If I incline this, oh, well, sorta, but not really, okay? So what is happening here? This version of silicon has low surface energy. This version of silicon has high surface energy. It wants to bond with the water. Now that's key. That is key for our ceramic coatings, right? We want, you know, when we polish a car and we put the ceramic coating on, after we polish, we notice that the paint is very grippy, right? That means we have a surface that is going to want to accept water or the solvent in many cases. It's going to want to accept that chemical and bond with it, right? If our surface is hydrophobic all the time, we would have a lot more trouble getting our ceramic coatings to bond, right? Because the surface already doesn't want to bond with anything. Here, this is what we want when we're prepping for a ceramic coating. We want our surface to be ready to just accept what is put onto the surface. This is pretty cool. But yeah, slickness is not an indicator for hydrophobicity. Here, grippy surface, slick surface that is smooth. This one was hydrophilic, this was hydrophobic. Now we get into the cool stuff. And imagine that this is a body panel, right? And we want to coat it. Right now we have a very hydrophilic surface. It is ready to accept the coating. So I've got some silicon dioxide nanoparticles here. Obviously those are not nanoparticles, they're just marbles. And well, let's go ahead and put it on, right? We just put it on. This is not good. This is not good. Clearly, this can't happen. They need structure. I cannot keep these all on the table. They need something to make them stick. They just are moving around, right? They need a resin. Now, obviously, we can't just lay the silicon dioxide on here because as we saw, it just rolls around. It won't stick, right? We need a resin, something that can organize the silicon dioxide, but also something that can conform, right? So think about your paint and body panels. They can bend. This can flex, right? And it vibrates. And when we see heat, it expands. And when we see cold, it contracts. So it's going through a lot of cycles. So we need something that is not too stiff, right? Or else every time we drive, it would just fracture and break. But we need something that is also not so soft that it'll just chip off and, you know, not provide the protection we need. That resin is normally referred to as your polysilazane. I'm just gonna say polysilazane chemical. They're not all created equal, and there's a ton of them out there, right? So this is our resin, right? Obviously, this is not actually resin, but it is flexible and it'll conform to the shape of the panel. So when we when we have our resin, we can stick our beads in here and we have some armor. Now our beads don't roll around, right? And they're also starting to form a bit of a structure here. Right? Now, the surface profile, so polysilazane is hydrophobic too, right? The silicon dioxide is also hydrophobic. So those things work together to create your hydrophobic coating. But now, not only do we have the armor of these these silicon nanoparticles, we have flexibility too, where they don't just spill everywhere. We have our resin, which has now bonded to our paint. We've used the solvent to deliver everything. So the solvent in a coating is to suspend the nanoparticles in the resin in the bottle, right? We don't want it hardening in the bottle, so we use a solvent to keep it in a liquid form and to keep things from sticking to each other. When we put the coating onto a surface, the solvent evaporates and we're left with just the resin and your silicon nanoparticles. The other key thing here though is if we coat an entire panel, right, we're gonna have a bunch of these, right? They'll be all over the surface. However, if they're separated like this, there's gaps. That means they're not working together, right? That's where cross-linking comes into play. Cross-linking is basically a molecular bond of some sort. I don't know the chemistry well enough to explain it, but it's essentially a bond that links these in a side-to-side fashion so that when we do coat the entire vehicle or an entire panel, you actually have a full sheet over your panel that is working together. If these don't cross-link, you know, they're not working together. You have gaps in here that, I don't know, maybe you can get mineral deposits or something in there, but essentially cross-linking is a very important component. It's what gets everything here working together, right? And this is a very basic explanation. Cross-linking can happen as mainly a side-to-side thing, but you know, you have to imagine nanoparticles, they are so small. They are so very small, right? And within a few microns, we have layers and layers and layers of nanoparticles and resin. So, you know, this is just a very basic demonstration of what cross-linking could look like. But let's talk a little bit more about these nanoparticles, because I don't know that anybody's really put it to scale of how big these particles really are. Silicon nanoparticles are so small that we can't even really grasp it. I could show you a picture of what they look like, but I don't think that really does it. Silicon nanoparticles are small, they're round, they can be perfectly round, they can be porous. They can vary in sizes from a diameter of 10 nanometers to 500. There's a lot of different kinds of silicon nanoparticles that are out there, but the key takeaway here is that they are on the nanoscale. Now, anything on the nanoscale, 1 nanometer is a millionth of a millimeter. And we get to the point in numbers where they kind of don't make sense. It's like, all right, 1 millionth of a millimeter, that's pretty small. But how small is that really? And how does that translate into the real world? I brought a golf ball. This golf ball represents a 10 nanometer particle. So if this golf ball is 10 nanometers, well then that means the field that I'm standing in is the thickness of a sheet of paper.